I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. The right to keep and bear arms is one of the most fundamental, natural, God-given rights, one of the most critically important rights to people living in a free society. In fact, for people that live in a society where they don't have the right to keep and bear arms, they're not living in a free society. And it's not just about killing deer, as the gun control crowd sometimes claims. First of all, it's the right of self-defense. Every person's got the right to defend himself against murderers, robbers, rapists, and the like. And sometimes that entails using a gun to make things a little bit more equal. When they enact gun control laws, they say, oh, well, this is to end violence in American society. That's ridiculous. Gun control laws, they don't discourage or prevent the murderer or the rapist from using guns. If they don't give a hoot for a rape law or a robbery law or a murder law, you think they're going to give a hoot about a gun control law? But the people who do care are the peaceful and law-abiding citizens. They don't want to be convicted of a felony for illegally carrying a gun. And so all that gun control does is disarm the peaceful, law-abiding citizen, prevents him or her from defending himself or herself against a robber, a rapist, a murderer, and the like. There's another factor to consider. That the right to keep and bear arms, is reflected in the Second Amendment, which protects that right, is also about the dissuading of government officials from enacting, adopting, implementing a tyrannical society. When people are disarmed, that society becomes a very obedient, compliant society. And government officials know that. In China, for example, okay, people protest, but government officials know that all they got to do is just slam those protests down, incarcerate people, maybe even kill a few to set an example, and there's nothing that people can do. Ultimately, the right to keep and bear arms, in a political sense, involves the resistance to tyranny. Now, there are those that say, oh, Jacob, the Pentagon and the CIA and the NSA would never adopt a tyrannical society. There's nothing to worry about. We can trust them. Oh, yeah? Look at the tyrannical regimes that they've installed overseas. For example, in Chile, they incited that coup that installed, with their full support, the Pinochet regime, which immediately rounded up tens of thousands of people, raped and tortured virtually all of them, killed or disappeared some 3,000 people, all with the full support of the Pentagon and the CIA. And they've done this time and time again in their regime change operations. This is their type of model society. And make no mistake about it, if given the right crisis and given their mindset of how they need to protect national security, they wouldn't hesitate to adopt their same principles here at home of torture, indefinite detention, the same principles they've adopted in Guantanamo Bay. But what will dissuade them from doing that is the fact that this is a well-armed society, and they know that people have a right to resist and the ability to resist. What about gun violence in American society? Well, it reflects a very dysfunctional society, but it has nothing to do with widespread gun ownership, as the gun control crowd maintains. Go to Switzerland. They're among the most well-armed people in the world. Every family's armed to the teeth. You don't see irrational mass killings there. My thesis is that the mass killings here in the United States and the massive violence is due to two federal programs. One is the drug war, which wreaks untold damage, just like Prohibition did. If you want to get rid of that violence, there's only one way to do it, and that's legalize drugs, just like we did to end Prohibition. And also, all of these out-of-control killings that are part of the death machine, the killing machine, that the federal government has become with the full support of both Republicans and Democrats. It's a veritable killing machine. It's impossible to know how many people they've killed overseas in the last 50 years, but it's certainly numbers in the millions. And they show no value for human life. So my thesis is that the off-kilter people here are simply mirroring federal conduct abroad. Now, you might say, oh, no, Jacob, the Pentagon, they don't show any value for foreign life, but they show value for American life. Well, that might or might not be true. I mean, they have assassinated American citizens as well. But the off-kilter person may not draw that distinction. All he sees is the total lack of value of human life in overseas affairs, and so he figures, all life is meaningless, valueless, and he goes off and wreaks his death and destruction with these random, irrational mass killings. When I was growing up in the 50s, there was off-kilter people, but they weren't engaging in these mass killings. I don't think it's a coincidence. With the rise of the interventionist state, the national security state, with the full support of Republicans and Democrats, we have this now almost daily ritual of mass killings. The right to keep and bear arms is a sacred, natural, God-given right, and we surrender that right at our peril. I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president.